I had a big experience with psychedelics, and it was just, it just changed my life. There's 20 or 30 of us. We're all together in close quarters. And I did a ketamine. I did intramuscular ketamine. And Gerald, let me tell you, I never felt more held. I've never used that word, held. So, and even now, it takes me back. Like, what other experience have you had, or you just thinking about it or talking about it, brings you back?
Welcome, Tribe. I'm Maya Rose.
And I'm Gerald Rogers. We're about to embark on another mind-expanding episode where we dive deep into the realms of psychedelics, sex, and the superconscious.
This is a transformational experience of healing, manifestation, increased clarity, flow, and alignment.
So join us on this sacred journey as we receive the codes of transformation from scientists and psychonauts, shamans, tantra masters, mystics, and more.
Together, we'll unravel the secrets of plant medicine, sex magic, and other tools to tap into higher states of consciousness.
So why are we here? To answer the call, to share our passions, and to be advocates for alternative healing.
So get ready for a ride that transcends the ordinary and leads you to the extraordinary, because living a legendary life is not just a choice.
It's a sacred adventure. Today, I'm so excited because we get to dig in with Dr. Bob Barrali and really talk about the power of ketamine, the power of psychedelics to reshape our world perspective. Dr. Bob has been a physician, a doctor for over 25 years working in the medical field. And I just think about how many patients you've worked with and how many experiences you've had in the traditional medicine space. And I'm really excited to talk about that transition that you went through as you discovered plant medicine and as you pursued building a practice around ketamine and helping people unlock their mind and deeper levels of spiritual healing through psychedelics. So I want to start with this question. Give me a perspective of who Bob was before psychedelics and after you got introduced to it and what that was like for you.
Well, first of all, Gerald, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited about this. I can talk about this stuff all day. Okay, so Bob, before psychedelics, was someone who, really wanted to be something when he grew up, okay? And I had a genuine interest in helping people and science and what one has to do to go from, grade school to become an attending physician in America is quite the journey. And so you have to toughen up in a lot of ways because, you see a lot, especially in emergency medicine, which is what I did. There was no, having a soft heart and being extraordinarily kind wasn't particularly celebrated through my medical training. So I became that way. I would say I had fun along the way, but I was always a little wound up, okay? Who did I kill? Who did I injure? Even when people would thank me for my helping them out, in the emergency department, you can imagine what I saw. So it was very stressful. People who get into healthcare, they beat themselves up. They're never good enough. So that's how they're able to rise through the ranks, and become physicians in America. That's my take. You're never good enough. You're always the negative outweighs the positive that you do. So that, maybe there's some good that comes from that. But in general, you're carrying the self-imposed weight of the world on you. And, you start to look at the world as, what's wrong? What's wrong with the world? Not birds, how beautiful, how green everything is, what a great party, what awesome friends I have. You're just looking over the next hill, Gerald. You're looking over people's shoulder for what's coming next. What's the problem you have to deal with? Okay. I don't know if you've been around a lot of medical people who are really working on the front lines, but they've got an edge to them, and you can tell. anyone who's the least bit sensitive to things energetically, you can tell. Okay. So then something flipped, a switch flipped, and I was like, I've got to stop doing this. And right around the time when I was changing my career about, 4 years ago, I had a big experience with psychedelics, and it was just, it just changed my life. Okay. So the first experience with psychedelics, 2006. Okay. And so this is the beginning of the change for Bob. Okay. In 2006, I went to Burning Man with some friends because I turned 40, and I took, some ecstasy and some mushrooms, and at a dose that was probably appropriate for that time. And just the sets, my mindset was just, I was around some new friends and enjoying myself. And I was at a place that was magical. I'd never seen anything like it before. Can you imagine walking, out of your tent with mushrooms and ecstasy on board, and seeing this world? And so, I went from, someone who had a lot of friendships of convenience and looking over the next hill and what the problem was, to someone who was a little bit more human, okay? An inch. The dial moved a millimeter, okay? And then, throughout this time, just fast forward to now, okay? I'd been doing psychedelics ceremonially, okay? More like a celebration. And, just surrounding myself just by luck with like-minded people that know what's important, people that are, that I can recognize as being role models, even though they would never say that. And they might even laugh, okay? So people who were, you don't need stuff, people that are happy with where they're at. They're comfortable in their own shell. They'll have fun wherever. They'll have fun sitting on a bus stop, and just taking things in stride. So all that stuff kind of rubs off on you over the years. Okay, so now let's just talk about when I went to Topanga Canyon and did some training, and this was 2022, let's just say. I did some training with ketamine. So for ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, it was me, maybe 20 therapists. And so now I'm doing psychedelics with purpose now. There was a lot of prep work that led up to this. And I'm with people that I don't really know, but they're like therapists and a couple other medical people. There's 20 or 30 of us. We're all together in close quarters. And I did a ketamine. I did intramuscular ketamine. And Gerald, let me tell you, I never felt more held. I've never used that word, held. So, and even now, it takes me back. Like, what other experience have you had, or you just thinking about it or talking about it, brings you back? So for the first time in my life, I felt held. And, that changed everything. And so I decided right then and there that not only am I, my second journey, leaving the ER was somehow going to incorporate psychedelics, but it was going to just, take me to places and meet interesting people and have relationships and work on relationships with people that are completely different from me. And, in a good way, there's a lot of similarities, but I'm most excited about that. So that is the difference between wound up Bob and Bob using psychedelics for X years recreationally, and then Bob after his big experience in 2022. This whole thing's been a process. Now, Gerald, along the way, it's not just the psychedelics, it's living, it's losing people, losing pets, losing, my identity, as an emergency medicine physician. It was a lot of loss and a lot of soul searching and a lot of, what's next? Because people like me, medical types, hard chargers, we need to be busy. We need to be doing things so I can say, hey, Gerald, look what I'm doing here. I have a purpose. So, softening that stuff and growing up, so to speak, psychedelics was a huge part of that. But just, the passage of time and being thoughtful. And then with all these psychedelic experiences that I'm having, not just, looking at it as a vehicle to party and be altered, but with all the ideas and thoughts that come through these psychedelic experiences, how do you put them into play? Is it a book that you'll reread? One you read 10 years ago before psychedelics, one you read after. How does that impact you? Is it re-looking at your relationships, re-looking at some of your beliefs? This is what's equally as important as the, use of psychedelic medications as far as I'm concerned. So how's that for a long answer?
I really appreciate it. I mean, there's so much to unpack around this reinvention, because I think this is one of the things that psychedelics is best for, is helping people navigate reinvention of identity, and to go from, a medically licensed, Western doctor who's working in an emergency field to supporting people and ketamine and all these other things. It's like this whole reinvention of your identity, of who you are and what it means, and what's important, what's not important. And so I love witnessing the space that psychedelics gives, because I think when we have these mind altering experiences, it gives us this perspective of how we see the world. And when we see the world in this new lens, then all of a sudden we begin questioning the way we've been doing things and why we've been doing those things and how we've seen ourselves and why we've seen ourselves in certain ways. And then the neuroplasticity that opens up through psychedelic experiences, it allows this openness, this space for new aspects of our identity to emerge. And so I love hearing that. And especially from people that like you, that have deep roots in traditional medicine, and that to be able to shift in and redirect your focus to a different type of healing. I would love to really dig in, especially to ketamine right now, because I know this is the vehicle, the tool that you've chosen to primarily focus on in your practice and your work. And I just want to start, especially for people that aren't familiar with ketamine, they haven't done a ketamine journey. Why did you choose ketamine as a vehicle to serve people? And what are some of the core outcomes or benefits that you witness in the people you work with?
Great questions. So, I'm using ketamine primarily because it's illegal. Okay. I shouldn't say primarily. First, it's legal. Second, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end with ketamine. It's an hour. Okay. So you can, go about your day. You can do it a couple times a week, once a week, as opposed to a big ayahuasca journey, for example, or a psilocybin and ecstasy journey. Well, those are 6 hours, and you're not doing anything for the rest of the day. So I also like ketamine because, just like you said, there's a lot of people that never tried psychedelics. They think of Nancy Reagan, saying, don't do drugs, or, the war on drugs, and growing up with that. And, they're afraid of becoming addicted to something. They're afraid of, losing their mind, or, falling over dead. I like ketamine because it's been around for 50 years. I like ketamine because I've used it in practice every day for 25 years. I would use it as a sedative. We would be using, into Journey, you use a lower dose, more or less. So I like it for those reasons. I also like it because there's a research done with ketamine and treatment-resistant depression. Okay, so now it's something that is, people in the public space are more aware of this. They're more accepting of it. It's something that's been around for a long time, so it's safe and it's proven. And for the most part, it's not addictive, which is another bit of a discussion. But at least the ways that we use it, it's something that's not abused, at least with my clients, as far as I know. And so some of the things that I've seen, okay, so most of my clients, let's just say they're like 25 to 75, okay? And you see a lot of people with these, hang-ups. Either they have long-standing depression and they're on 2 different medications, doing talk therapy, and there's just, like a perpetual sadness, not being good enough, angst, just this pressure to perform. Just for example, there's a dozen of these, reasons why people come to me. The main reason why people come to me is because they went to a ketamine clinic where you're in a room with an IV. You can watch whatever you want on TV. Someone can sit and talk to you the whole time. Completely different experience from what I do. So what I like is we go in to these experiences. This is after, making sure it's safe for everyone. Are you the appropriate candidate for this? Have all your questions been answered? This is after me meeting these people a few times before we even begin the journey. So there's a familiarity, a comfort. All the questions have been answered. They might even come to the office and look around, so they're comfortable there. Or alternatively, they might feel safer in their own home. And so myself and a psychedelic-informed therapist and the client will sit with them. The journeys are about an hour. Afterwards, we integrate for another hour. And then during the week, the therapist integrates with the client, okay? And then I'll see them the next week, and we'll do a repeat of that. We'll do that 4 to 6 times in a nutshell, okay? And I see big changes in people, big changes in their energy, big changes in their outlook on life. You could just see the tension. They look 10 years, the tension melts from them. They look 10 years younger. I ask, and I'll just ask questions like, okay, what's different this week than last week? What are you doing differently? I'm interested in behavior, not just feelings, because what comes from these psychedelic experiences, as you know, Gerald, are possibility. Now all of a sudden you've been living in a well, and now all of a sudden you get to see what it's like on the outside of the well. So there's all this possibility, but like, what are you doing with the possibilities? And so people's, lives change. Just, a new career path, just a new outlook, a new relationship. They might have known someone for 20 years, but it's a new relationship. Just looking at the world through different eyes, hopefully changing behavior. The world reflects that back on you, and that, propagates more of this behavior. I know it sounds a little too analytical and scientific, but what I'm doing is trying to put words to what I think is just a miracle, or something that I think is, here's old school, like just really cool to be a part of, And all I have to do is create a safe space and be a conduit, just be open and authentic and be myself. And then people respond to that. And all I need to do is just get out of the way and let it happen. And, I think everyone is involved. Everyone who's involved is important. Me, okay, the client, the therapist. I can't say enough about the therapist, because what they do, Gerald, is they put context to some of these big experiences. What I would say, just to go back a little bit, when I had my big ketamine experience when I was training, we did some integration while we were there. We were there for 5 days, but like, what about the next week or the next month? These psychedelics keep working as weeks and months go by. Okay. I mean, we talk about neuroplasticity and changing, and creating new connections. Okay. But thoughts and perspectives are going to crop up. And so how do you put that into, how does you make sense of that? You know, I don't know that just being left to your own devices is ideal. So, you know, you can either talk to someone who's a very psychedelic informed, or you talk to like a psychologist or a therapist or a coach who is psychedelic integration trained. And that takes, you know, a pretty good experience with ketamine and makes it, you know, exponentially better. And that's the long answer.
I love it. And I think that set and setting is like so important. And so in your perspective, like what are the specific conditions or challenges or problems that someone might have that would be best addressed through a ketamine experience? Like where are the specific things that you've seen the greatest results in people's lives?
Okay. So it would be a person who is, you know, I'm not seeing people who are acutely suicidal, okay, or like, you know, catatonically depressed. You know, if I do see someone like that, I quickly, you know, refer them to a higher level of care. I know there's a lot of data about acute suicidal ideation and ketamine, and they get better, but like that's something that needs to be done in some type of a facility where they're used to doing that. So, for example, I'll see people who have mental health issues light. Okay, and what I mean by light is they keep getting in their own way. Okay, they keep going down the same pathway, trying to solve the same problem. Okay, and it obviously isn't working. They'll destroy relationships. You know, but addictions, low-level addictions, you know, addicted to pornography, addicted to certain foods, you know, gambling addictions, self-sabotage, and the 1,000 reasons why people do that, okay? Those are the things, okay, that people come in, and they might come in with one thing, you know, like like the start of the onion, so to speak, and then between the therapist and myself, separately, we peel away some layers, and all of a sudden, the real issue comes to light. This is the things, in a broad way, Gerald, these are the things that I can help people with. And it seems simple in retrospect, but believe me, it's like climbing Everest for a lot of people. You know, we both have these issues. I still deal with them. So
yeah. No, I mean, it's beautiful. I think it's important for people to know that, you know, like with psychedelics, there's no magic pill that cures everything. Like, because I think sometimes, you know, people are searching for that. But what my experiences of ketamine have done, it's just like expanded my perspective, and it's a help detach me from being immersed in the problem and help me see myself bigger than the problem. I've actually had 2 different ketamine experiences, both very different. And I think this is where set and setting is so important. Like the first time I ever did ketamine, we had a bunch of friends and we were doing like this MDMA heart ceremony, and it was like really beautiful and magical. And one of my friends was like, "Hey, you want to experience ketamine? It's like really cool." I'm like, "I've never done it before. Let's try it." And I've heard some magical things about it, but we did it through our nose. We sniffed some, and it was way too much. Like it was so much that like for like 3 to 4 hours, I was like catatonic on the ground, couldn't move my body. Everything felt like plastic. And it was like this fantastically weird world, but it was like also not what I was expecting. You know, I went from like this MDMA space where I felt so good in my body to all of a sudden everything felt artificial. I was disconnected from my body, and it was really interesting. But not the ideal situation. And so it wasn't until actually less than a month ago when I went down and did ketamine at one of my friends' clinics in Austin that I actually had. Like, it was very ceremonial. It was very intentional. Like you mentioned, I felt so held in that experience. It was like beautiful music. It was like we're really well prepared. They had conversations with us before to make sure we're tuned in, make sure that the dosage was right. And going through that experience, once again, it was a more intense psychedelics experience than it was like really like enough where I lost association to my body, but my identity began to grow. And what was really cool about that is I could feel like the immensity of my cosmic soul. I could feel like this remembrance of like this deep divinity of the timeless essence of Gerald, and it gave me space to explore these concepts where I've been like really stuck in my life. And I'm dealing with a struggle with the IRS right now, and feeling like this like internal battle as I'm like trying to resolve this situation. And all of a sudden it was like ketamine gave me space where I could feel my soul being so immense and the IRS being so puny, this like man-made construct of, the IRS felt so small. I was just like, oh, I've got this. Like my soul, I can trust my soul to navigate whatever I'm creating in my life. And it gave me this alignment where all of a sudden I wasn't stressed anymore. I wasn't, absorbed in these challenges, and a couple other things in my life where it was just like my brain was stuck in these unhealthy loops, these unhealthy traumas. It's like all of a sudden those loops got, cut off, so I could just like be present and be in tune and be, more energized by life rather than wrapped in these unhealthy cycles. And so it was so useful, but the setting was so critical for that. I would love for you to share like when someone considers doing any psychedelic journey, but especially ketamine, like what are the important considerations to have as it relates to this idea of set and setting to make sure that they don't have a bad trip or a bad experience? How do you help ensure people have the greatest chance of having something that expands their life rather than getting stuck in other trauma?
All right. So, number one, I want someone to come to ketamine on their own. I don't want it to be like, well, my wife's going to leave me or my husband's through with me. He said, go get ketamine therapy, or something like that, where it's being forced on them. And even if it's like a low level force, that's important. Okay. Number one. Number two, someone's got to be healthy enough for this. Okay. Like people with heart conditions or like morbid obesity, only because there's, these people stop breathing when they go to sleep at night. We don't want that in our clinic. Those are the big things, heart conditions, thyroid conditions. There's a lot of theoretical things that haven't been proven, like, if someone has schizophrenia, or a family history, a legitimate family history of schizophrenia, it might be cause for concern. These are theories. These aren't proven. By and large, though, let me say ketamine is an extraordinarily safe drug. Okay. Like it's been used for longer than we've been alive. That might be an exaggeration on my part, but it's been around for a very long time in the hospital setting, and it's extraordinarily safe. Another thing that's important is that people are, willing to commit to this. It's, there's a lot of prep that is involved. Do they want to just share? Do they want to grow? Or do they just want a pill and move forward? Do they want a quick fix? A lot of the questions that I ask people, I have an hour interview before we even do anything. Okay. Like the first time I meet someone, I talk to them for an hour, and I'm asking questions designed around people's willingness to learn and change. What do you read? Tell me about some of your experiences. Why do you want to do ketamine therapy? That's actually really important. It seems like a simple question, but it's something that's problematic for people. They say, "Oh, just because I read it's supposed to help, and I don't feel good. I feel stuck." I want more of an answer than that. So again, Gerald, I think I was talking about this. I've got my ideas, about the perfect ketamine candidate, but I'm always surprised, people that I don't think would be ideal, they do better than I could ever imagine. In fact, they teach me things, and it's just, I'd like to make a movie about one particular person, but it's like every other person I see surprises me, and I'm just, not that surprised anymore. How many people out there will benefit from ketamine therapy. So in the early days, I had a very narrow view. Now it's expanded. I just want everyone to be safe. I want people to want to commit. It's very important. And I want them to talk to a therapist and a coach, or a coach in between. And so we can maximize their experience. Those are the important things in a nutshell.
That's amazing. So I'm curious about this. I'm always like, I love thinking about these different versions, these different iterations of us and the wisdom that we gather through our experiences and in our own individual life school curriculum. So I would love to just ask you, if you were to rewind back in time, let's say 20 years or something, and based on the knowledge and perspective that you have, if you were to drop back in time to that earlier version of Bob, like what would be the thing that you would like, oh my gosh, I want my previous version of me to understand this? What would that be?
It would be like, I don't know, take more time with people. From a professional point of view, take more time and talk to people and sit down. It got way better as my career progressed, but in the early years, like I would try and get ahead of my emotions more. So I would say to younger Bob, like, hey, Bob, when you start feeling this way, don't like lash out. Don't be sarcastic. Don't get angry. Don't go from 0 to 100 when trivial things happen. Just get ahead of those emotions and ask why. Why do you feel this way? What's happening right now? And I would be able to say to myself, because now I know this, if you can get ahead of your emotions and look back at them, you kind of smile about it and then they dissipate, And so that is the essence. The one thing, if I could go back, because that would solve a lot of problems, Gerald. Because let's face it, 90% of the problems that you and I have are based in like a reaction to something, like it's, yes, there's the IRS thing, but it's usually like some type of a reaction. And then these reactions compound and create more problems, and you're digging out. You spend a lifetime digging out and backtracking and apologizing. This is my personal experience, but I'm certain some of your audience members know exactly what I'm talking about. So that would be it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that wisdom. Even just like slowing down, the importance of like just being more present, just being more connected to the moment. And I think psychedelics has given me so much trust in the journey of life, right? Rather than being so attached and trying to control like this whole experience. It's just like, just trusting that there's some divine orchestration beyond what my conscious mind can experience. And that has helped me so much, and just like relaxing into the moment, being present with that person that I'm talking to in this moment. And rather than letting that part of my brain that's always trying to figure out what's next. I love that the psychedelic experiences have had me tune into more of the what's now part of my brain instead of the what's next part of my brain. What's now? And in that, there's just like this easiness to life, even in the midst of uncertainty, even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of, like change and massive evolution. Like there's a centeredness where I feel like it can be the center in the eye of the storm, regardless of what's happening. And that's really made a big difference. I would love for you to share any specific stories from significant psychedelic journeys that have like really shaped you, or even like like moments of, yeah, just that have been like interesting or like really memorable experiences for you?
Well, before I get to that, I want to climb on the back of what you just said about your ability to just be at ease in the moment, or relax into the moment, or stop trying to be more. We spend all of this time trying to be more, trying to live someone else's reality sometimes. And then we forget all of this wisdom that we were born with, So, and that speaks to trusting yourself. These are the things that are important to me and the clients that I work with. So, just to kind of reiterate what you just said, which I think is awesome. Some of some of the big stories that I've had. Well, here's one. Okay. So, in this life, all of your relationships aren't going to work out, even though on the surface, things seem to be great. So I had a business relationship, okay? And it was me and another person, and I thought things were going great until they weren't. So being the medical person that I am, I beat myself up what I could have done differently. If only I had showed up this way, if only I had worked harder or read that business book, or maybe was more attentive to the business partner's feelings. So then I have a kind of a shaman up here that would never call herself a shaman. She's someone that I met for lunch once just to talk. She's in the psychedelic space. And while I'm eating my tuna fish sandwich, I'm crying. Okay. This is how special this person was. I met her a few times out. And I always wonder, who is going to be someone who I'm going to do a big journey with, that I trust enough to come right into this room, okay, and do it. And so now is the time, because I was feeling so bad about this business divorce or breakup. I was feeling so bad about myself and just the whole thing. And so, she said to me, okay, let's do it. And I go, hey, I've got this great room where we can do it. It's just great, I've got it all decorated. It'll be real special. It'll be a great set, setting. She's like, no, we're doing it here. And she goes, okay. You have to wear a blindfold the whole time. I'm like, okay. So these are, guy like me doesn't trust anyone. You don't trust yourself. You don't trust anyone. Okay. And she's like, I go, well, what are we going to do? She goes, psilocybin and MDMA. I'm like, how much? And she's like, I'm not telling you. So I'm like, uh-oh. Trusting test number 2. And so then, she sets up her whole situation in this room that I'm in now. Awesome music, blindfold, undisclosed amounts of MDMA and psilocybin. And within an hour, Gerald, I'm in it. I'm in a jungle. She's got a humidifier going. It's like, I'm in the rainforest. And I'm talking the whole time, okay? And I'm talking about this business relationship. And it's like I'm asking questions and the answers are coming from somewhere through me. Asking questions and the answer comes. And the long and short is, Gerald, it's like business relationships and relationships in general don't work out sometimes. And a lot of times it might have something more to do with your partner than you. And so to sit there and after the fact beat yourself up about it is, it could be helpful for about 5 minutes if you're, genuinely learning from your mistakes, so to speak. But in general, most people carry that scar, that guilt, that imagined mistake that ruined the relationship. They carry it for the rest of their lives. And so I had this big journey. You're just getting the elevator speech here. I had this big journey and so many things became clear. And that and 10 other things about the relationship and me feeling bad dissipated. And I was like floating around. And for months after the fact, I'm learning. I'm learning from that one experience, not only the business experience, but the psychedelic experience. Like, these things might be just common to people who are entrepreneurs, but to me, it's a big deal. Okay. I've got an N of one. That's me. All right. I know my experience and how I felt. And so, that was, again, these psychedelic journeys are something that I think you should treat like silver bullets. They're a celebration. That's one thing. But, I had a very important question to ask, the failure of my business. Why, and that was a great time to do that. And other times, it just might be dumb luck, but you really, I'm thankful that we live in a place and I'm connected to people who can, just come in. They're like angels. This person came to my house and she was like an angel, and it created a mindset in me and a setting in this little room here, this dungeon, and just made all the difference in the world for me. That's a big psychedelic experience if I've ever heard of one. So.
I really love you sharing that. And it's like really sacred, because like sometimes when we approach the door of a psychedelic journey, we don't actually know what's on the other side, right? There has to be this like innate surrender. Like we might have an intention, we might have an idea, but the moment you go through that door, whether it be, psilocybin or ketamine or ayahuasca or bufo, any other psychedelic, like the moment you go through that door, the medicine has its own consciousness that interacts with our consciousness, that creates, something that's beyond what we could have planned. And so I think it's so useful, just like this, woman who was your guide, to create this space where you just almost had to surrender. And in that space, you got to interact with these higher forms of your consciousness to receive the answers. And that's one of my favorite things, is just like creating that openness, holding the intention, but creating the openness for my higher mind to deliver what my soul really needs, and to just be in that state of curiosity. And I think surrender is like a big part of that.
Now, do you know that, like, I like what you say. How did you come to you would be in a psychedelic journey and to be able to do that, to be able to just want to get to a place where your higher mind is going to come into play? Like it seems very intentional, which is awesome. But how did you know that? Is it just from reading or from having numerous psychedelic experiences? Like, where does that come from?
I think it's an interesting question. And I think part of it is innate in certain personality archetypes, right? Like my personality archetype has always been driven by change, and being driven by change, there's this curiosity and this openness to allow, whatever needs to happen, right? So I think there's a part of me that's innate, right? And part of me that's always curious. I don't want to be too attached to what was, because it's going to block me from what could be. But at an even deeper level, I think it's also a practice, being able to practice meditation, or like I've done a lot of work with hypnotherapy and NLP, and just like being able to like open my mind to receive something more. And then I think it deepens, like there's a point within my ayahuasca journeys or my bufo journeys where like you can't hold on anymore. You can't like stay attached to what you think. Like the medicine is so strong that it breaks your hold, where you have to release. And then it's like our souls start building trust in the process, trusting the experience, trusting the medicine, trusting our souls to know that even when we're going through an intense time, even when it feels scary, even when there's an ego death of some sort, like to trust is like, oh, there's something beautiful on the other side of this. And then that practice beyond the medicine also has given me that level of surrender in life in general. Like when I've gone through really hard relationship transitions, going through divorce, or really hard business challenges, or really hard moments of, feeling uncertainty in myself. It's just like, oh, this is like, life is a ceremony. And with life being a ceremony, there's like of course there's these intense periods of time. Of course there's times of purging. Of course there's times of release, but that trust is like, oh, this is part of a divine alignment that's happening. Like they're actually, for me, the awareness is there's actually no problems. I actually don't experience problems. There's nothing bad that actually can possibly happen to me. It's all just a realignment in my soul. And when I can step into that level of intentionality, then the surrender becomes an act of power, not an act of weakness. Surrender is like the greatest state that I can be in to process trauma, to process change, to process things in the most effortless way, where it's just like there's a flow of energy that allows the realignment to happen. So I think there is some natural innate things that people just like are more open to change, and some people have experienced a lot of trauma. So they're like trying to like, white knuckle grip their life and like try to control everything. And for them, psychedelics can be like incredibly terrifying, because there comes a point where it doesn't matter how hard you're holding on, like the psychedelics are going to like beat the shit out of you until you like open your hands and actually allow yourself to let go of what no longer serves and open yourself up to receive. But then I think it's also that intentionality and that practice of like being in trust with your soul, with the universe, with the process of life, with whatever your soul signed up for.
So what's important about psychedelic experiences is getting people thinking along the lines of what you just discussed. Like making the soil fertile, so to speak. That could be with several sessions with a psychedelic-informed therapist. That could be some type of reading material, a video, changing your diet, just things to get people thinking along these lines. So when they go into the experience, they've got all that, Now, listen, I don't know that we could take your mind and bottle it, obviously you're very unique. People are very unique. It's a combination of the life experiences and how they've interpreted it. But, this is when I talk about things like a lot of prep work. What are we doing before this? What are we doing, to get people in the right mindset? I can take care of the setting, okay? But it's, just listening to you talk, I'm like, yes. This is what I like to do up front, to get people thinking about these things, even though it's clumsy language. You know what I mean? When you first start using it, it's clumsy, it doesn't feel right. Some people are rigid, like you said. Some people are just wildly unimaginative because it's been beaten out of them in life. Some people are just stuck, and then genuinely depression, or call it what you want, malaise, or this fog, they're just using certain parts of their mind, and just the ability to, even beforehand, in the month leading up to this, get people thinking about this, lubrication. It's, and then when we go in for game day, everyone's ready. Everyone's confident, everyone's at ease. Maybe their heart rate is 40 when they walk in the door, maybe they're really relaxed. How can we work on their parasympathetic nervous system without just using a heart math monitor, in isolation, How do we lower their whole hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis activation? How's that for a mouthful? Like, how do we do that before? There's 10 things, Gerald, we can do before people walk into a psychedelic journey, and it's different things work for different people, but I'm happy if one works. Okay. And then that makes the journey that much better. If you do your air quotes homework ahead of time, these are the things that I get excited about, because let's face it, Gerald, we don't have this tribe of elders. Well, we do, but not really, where we've been brought up through the ranks, and there's this community that we're in, and it's genuine. It's not just all about psychedelics. It's not forced. It's, it's taken time, and we've got this community. We've got elders, and psychedelics have been a part of us since birth. We're retrofitting psychedelics into this society, which is extraordinarily difficult. And I think all we got is prep work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it's what an exciting time that more and more people are beginning to open themselves up to this.
Yeah.
And what like an inherently like unique challenge we face to go from the rigid Western way of like doing life and the like focus on doing as a way of achieving value to this more openness to trusting life and focusing on the being, of this essence. So I always love, in the last few minutes we have to like really leave everyone that's listening. And by the way, thank you everyone that's like tuning into this conversation. Hopefully you feel your souls and minds being nourished and opened. And thank you, Bob, once again for digging into this with us. And I always love to leave with some practical things that people can apply, whether they're preparing for a psychedelic journey or whether they're integrating afterwards. Like what are the things, Dr. Bob, that you feel like would be most valuable to leave as practical tools and wisdom and tips to help people really support in having like an amazing journey in their psychedelic exploration?
Great. So how to have a psychedelic journey that anyone would want to have. Okay. So, they say, the journey you get is the journey you need, not the one you want, so to speak. Okay. But in general, you want to commit. You want to be all into this. This is going to be a lifestyle. This isn't going to be take a pill and then you're better. So anything that you can do ahead of time. Okay. So you want to pick a practitioner that resonates with you. You want to pick a practitioner that's going to be a facilitator, a shaman, whoever you want to call it, someone who's going to be there for you, okay? Someone that's going to communicate with you, someone that you might have their cell phone number and you can communicate questions leading up to this back and forth. You want to have someone that's going to help you put this together after the fact. Okay, and even help you along before with the prep work we've been talking about. You want to have a few therapy sessions or coaching sessions, or at least talk to someone who's psychedelic informed. I know some people aren't into that. It's like people that aren't into journaling, which is my next point. I think people don't like journaling because they feel it's something that's not publishable and they don't want to waste the time or something, or maybe they think back to school, or they don't have the time, or they can't write, or that's not their medium. Okay, get on Marco Polo or some video, or record, talk about your thoughts, ask questions, ask what you want out of this, ask why psychedelics. Just keep asking those questions without necessarily having answers. Talk to a therapist ahead of time. If there's some really unhealthy things that you're doing leading up to this, that could screw up your experience. This is debatable, okay? How much marijuana are you smoking, okay? How many benzodiazepines or sleeping pills are you taking? Plus minus on the antidepressants, okay? That's another discussion. But like, what are you doing that's blunting or changing the way you feel? How much caffeine is in your diet? How much alcohol? Are you at a healthy weight? When was the last time you saw a doctor? Are you exercising? Are you sleeping? All these pillars of integrative health, I think, are equally as important as the spirituality that comes with the psychedelic experience. All that stuff should be at least addressed beforehand. And it seems like a lot, okay? But in general, just looking at these things a little bit will make your psychedelic experience that much better. And I stand behind that. I've got some, I've had a few clients that have done this at this point. So I'm confident that that's probably the best way, you know.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, so much. So just final question is like, how can we or the listeners support you, like, or connect with you further or explore more of your work?
So I'm at Safe Pathways Wellness. The website is www.safepathwayswellness.com. And you can contact me through there, you know, and I will talk to people just to give them some information. I give like 20-minute free information sessions just so we can feel each other out. That would be the best way. You know, I'm like around in the community. I go to people's homes. I have an office in Salt Lake on Temple. You know, there's, and for me, not only do I do, you know, the ketamine therapy, I'm connected with therapists that I know and trust, but I would work with someone's personal therapist if they were curious about this too. And then also, I'm an integrative health physician too. This is really important. I did a fellowship in Andrew Weil over the last 2 years. Just completed that in January. And the skills that came out of that really inform my ketamine therapy. Because it's not just the mind, you know, it's the body, it's the community. What are you putting into your body? All this stuff. How's your sleep? You know, it seems like common sense stuff, but you need someone objective talking to you about this and maybe presenting some options besides ketamine therapy. So that's how someone could support me. Safe Pathways Wellness.
Thank you so much. All right. Final thing, one final thought that you would like, if you would give everyone just one final thought, one final action step, one thing to do from this, what would that be?
This is what I would say to people in general. I would say 3 things. 1, learn a little bit about statistics because you're surrounded with people and advertisements that are making claims, and there aren't statistics on the one hand. On the other hand, there's listening to yourself and learning to be okay with who you are, even in the face of statistics, because they're very limiting, as is science, you know. And that would be the spirituality aspect. Be okay with who you are and listening to yourself. And that can take a lifetime, but it's a great thing to practice. So.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank everyone for joining us for this beautiful conversation. And for everyone that's like continuing your journey of accessing your higher mind, just keep being open, keep learning, keep joining us for this show as we continue to have amazing guests and as we continue this journey together. And until we speak again, just remember, this is your life. Make it legendary.
Thank you, legendary explorers, for joining us on this cosmic journey today.
Your curiosity fuels our exploration of psychedelics, sex, and the superconscious.
If you're hungry for more, dive into our website and connect with us on social media. All the links are in the show notes.
And stay tuned for our next mind-expanding episode. We can't wait to talk to you again in our next adventure.
Until then, remember, this is your life. So,
make it legendary.